What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with John. And it's our Hell in a Cell, our WWE Hell in a Cell pay-per-view review. So we have a special guest host with us. First of all, as I like to do with every single episode, is just to throw out our plugs for, so you know where to find us on social media. Of course, on Twitter, you can find us at withjohners_pod. That's at withjohners_pod. On Instagram, you can find us there as well. Just simply search Wrestling with Johners. That's instagram.com/Wrestling with Johners. And go out and search our ever popular, fun and interactive Facebook community page. Just search for Wrestling with Johners, and that's Johners spelled Johners. And of course, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, please don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can be notified every time a new episode drops. This is your only podcast of all of your weekly NXT UK updates, WWE pay-per-view reviews, AEW Dynamite on the odd occasion, and AEW pay-per-view reviews also, just for all your all-round pro wrestling needs. So spread the word, don't forget to subscribe, and tell your friends and tell your family. We've just dropped over the last few days, this past weekend, episode 70 and 71 back to back. Episode 70 focused on last week's NXT. The first time it went 2 hours live on the USA. Remember, the previous 2 weeks it was shared half and half between the network and USA. The first 2 hour live show on USA, and kind of we broke down what happened on that episode with Kieran Reid. We also spoke about this week's SmackDown, the first live SmackDown on Fox, of course, as well as our predictions for Hell in a Cell that we're going to be talking about very, very soon. Episode 71 went up on Sunday as well, and that was our AEW Dynamite debut review show, and that was Ash Crawford and Chris Thornton. We spoke for about an hour on AEW's debut Dynamite on TNT, so 2 good listens there. Go out and check them out at a podcast platform near you. So today I want to introduce another podcaster, a podcast friend of ours that we interact with occasionally on Twitter, but we've never had him on the show, and it's Dits from DOWPod, Dits on Wrestling Podcast. So Dits, good evening, how you doing, and thanks for coming on the Wrestling with Johners podcast, buddy.
Oh, it's absolute pleasure. I've been stalking your podcast for a while now, so I'm happy to finally get on it.
No, likewise. I've been listening to a lot of your episodes, and a really fun listen. I mean, I listen to it most weeks, to be honest with you. I mean, you've got a popular Twitter and Instagram page, so we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But you do have some popular and very fun podcast series. You've got Draft That, which is one of your new series that you've launched, and hopefully you can tell us a bit more about that very soon. And your weekly show, which covers Raw and SmackDown, pay-per-view highlights, interviews, and your power rankings. So tell us a little bit about your activity on social media and your podcast series, your podcast shows as well, Dit.
So started twittering about, I think it was August 2016. I thought, you know what, I don't even touch my personal Twitter profile when it comes to, I had like 90 followers or something. I was like, this is the most pointless thing I've ever done. So I thought, I'm going to do a wrestling Twitter because I love wrestling. And it's just an opportunity to talk to people about it without revealing me. Obviously, that's pointless now because I'm here on this. But yeah, like, always debated doing like a podcast. I started off with like the Wrestlers podcast, but like the more into wrestling Twitter you get, the more like independent podcasts that start showing up. So guys like yourself, guys like Smart to Death, Wrestling Reverb, all those kind of guys. And I kind of moved away from like the Edge and Christian podcast, the Spotify podcast, the Talk is Jericho podcast, stuff like that. And I just listen to independent ones now, like amateur podcasts. Yeah. So, and I prefer them. I really do. And listening to those, I was like, I could do this. I could definitely do this. But then work took me away for 4 months when I was about to pull the trigger on it. And I think that was just before Survivor Series last year. So I was like, oh, come on. And the wife had bought me the podcast equipment. And I was like, yes, here we go. Then work got in the way. So I was like, right. So I'm playing countdown now until I get back. And then April, I thought, right, here we go. Let's get this done. And of course, it was a mess. When I first started it was an absolute
It always is
wreck.
Your first few, yeah.
Oh, God,
first few podcasts.
I actually listened back to a few, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was like, Jesus, like, what is this? I like to think I've got a little bit better as I've gone along. Changed up the formula a little bit in the last couple of months. Now I do interviews as well as just highlights, because that's primarily what it was all about. It was just doing highlights of the weekly shows, and it got too I got too familiar with it, and it was starting to lose what I wanted. I want my podcast to be the most interactive podcast that it can possibly be. So I had, like yourself, I had you on to do a voice clip. I can't remember if it was Raw or SmackDown, one or the other. And I like to get people on who wouldn't usually have the voice to do like this kind of stuff. They don't have their own podcast, they just have Twitter. So it kind of takes what they say on Twitter, puts it into voice form, and whacks it on my weekly podcast. So it gives them a voice. Do the power rankings as well, do that every single week. That's a lot of fun. As you said, started the Draft That series last month, which, like, I'm not gonna lie, if that thing takes off, that is taking over my weekly show. I love doing it. It's so much fun. Episode 4 of that drops this Monday. Doing that with Josh Robinson. We're doing theme music, so we're drafting theme music for that one. But with of course, you will be coming on at some point. You are on my list.
I hope so.
You are on my list. In fact, I know exactly what draft I want us to do, and it's NXT and NXT UK.
Superb.
If I can avoid, I'm actually not going to put it on a list. So, because what I get people to do, I say, right, here's the list of drafts that we can do. You pick one, and then I pick one. And then we put it out to Twitter, and then Twitter decides what we do. So I'm going to take NXT and NXT UK off that list, so it's not even an option. And then when you come in, I'm going to go, bang, right, just pick that. And
that's my bread and butter. Can't wait.
I'll pick a terrible one, so NXT wins. So yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of weeks now. A lot of fun. And I'm going to drop an exclusive on you as well right now.
Go on, yeah, go for it.
So the podcast is changing not the content really, because I've already changed it up like a month and a half ago. But because there's so much going on, you've got Raw on Monday still. SmackDown has now moved to Friday. You got AEW on Wednesdays with NXT. Like, there's so much wrestling that I want to cover. But having my episodes drop on a Thursday, like my weeklies, it's hard to get around. I literally cannot record for NXT because it's way too last minute. I like to release my episodes like bang in the morning, so I can listen to it on the way to work. So I can kind of go, well, it's too late by that point, but I can kind of listen to it and go, was this any good? But by then, and I haven't even watched NXT. I don't watch NXTs till like Thursday. Same with AEW. So now, I mean, this will be revealed on, my show this week, but hey, exclusive on here.
Exclusive from Wrestling with Johners.
My weekly day is now going to be Sunday.
Right. So Sunday is your launch day.
That will be my new weekly episode day, because I can fit Raw in. It gives me enough time to watch NXT and AEW and SmackDown, and I can cover it all. And instead of doing Raw and SmackDown highlights, I'm going to do WWE highlights and AEW highlights. So that'll be my two. And then obviously if there's a pay-per-view as well, I'll throw that in there. But that's really all. That's the only thing that's really changing. But I think it'll be significant because I'll be covering AEW as well. So that's something completely new. And I started doing NXT when I started the podcast, and then moved away from it because I just stopped watching it. Not stopped watching it until I just stopped watching it like at a decent time. But now,
not only that, there's only so many times, so much time in the day. There's only so many days of the week. You're in a situation now where you're having to kind of cherry pick, or maybe move one out of the picture, and maybe there's things on my wrestling calendar that's had to been squeezed out purely because just so much content now, and I can only watch so much with a full-time job and a family. And you have to make choices when it comes to choosing which product you're actually going to sit down and invest in, and write down for your podcast. I'm sure you're going through exactly the same.
It's hard. It is hard, but so that's what I'm going to be doing really. And interviews I incorporate into the weeklies. They're just going to be their own separate thing now. I did one on Monday just gone with Leo London, got a professional wrestler out in Canada, really good chat. And it was off the back of that, I was just like, why am I putting this with my weekly? Like, this deserves its own spotlight. So that'll be the same going forward. I'll still get people on to do highlights with me, of course. You're a perfect example. You cover NXT every single week. So of course, naturally pluck you into my pod to do the NXT highlights. Happy days, I'll do that. But getting actual interviews with wrestlers or refs, anyone in the industry will just be like a separate episode, like a bonus episode, just like Draft That. That's really it.
Sounds like fun. Like I say, I'm a big fan of your podcast. I've thrown a few positive comments your way on Twitter, and I really mean it. Your podcast is very interactive, a lot of fun. When I listened to the first episode of Draft That, so I was just laughing all the way. It was such good fun. And you know the who did you have on the first episode? Was it
It was Anthony Talk Stuff.
Yes, yeah. And you two kind of mixed well. You interacted well. A lot of chemistry there, and it's a lot of good fun. But I've listened to episode 2 and 3, so looking forward to episode 4 dropping very, very soon. So tell us a little bit about your wrestling fandom then, Dits. So when did it all start for you? When did you first clap eyes on professional wrestling? What kind of hooked you, and who were your favourites back in the day?
So I mean, hate's a strong word. Actually, I take that back, but I just don't like him. Hulk Hogan was the guy that got me into wrestling. My granddad had a collector's shop, so my mum would usually, like, whenever I finished school, my mum would be working, so I would go and stay with them, have like tea there, or dinner, and then go home like in the evening. Like, that was pretty much my week. As soon as I'd done school, straight to granddad's. And I always used to rummage around in his shop, and I found, I mean, it was like postcards and old like cigarette cards, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he had like really old videotapes in there. So like he had the whole Flash Gordon in there. He had like He-Man, and then all that. And I was like, do I want to watch that? And I did watch it because it was something to do. But the one that really stood out was I remember the sleeve. It was a white sleeve, and it had the image on the side of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. And that little picture they used to have on the spine of it. I was like, what the hell is that? And I pulled it out and then looked at it. I was like, I'm gonna go watch this, and I went and watched it, and it was like a compilation of Hulk's like greatest hits for that time period. So it was around the time when Hulk was against Big Boss Man. I don't know when it was. I know they were in a steel cage. It was back when like it was like that really old steel cage.
Yeah, that was around 88, I think, 88, 89. So yeah,
quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, I was like, oh my God, like this is incredible. And he had like another 2 videos as well, all Hulk Hogan. I was like, wow, this is really good. But I didn't have anything to expand on it. I didn't know where to go and watch, anymore. Like I said to my granddad, do you have any more? And he's like, no, that's all we got. I was like, come on, like I need some more. It was like sweets to me. It was like sweets. I wanted more.
You were hooked.
I was hooked. And then I just kind of went away from there. And that must have been about 97, I reckon, 96, 97. And then The Rock started coming through, and somebody mentioned like him to me at school, and I was like, who's The Rock? Who is this guy? And he was like, this is what he does, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, I'm going to check that out. So I literally tried to find anything on The Rock, and my grandma got me the People's Champion video. So weird talking about VHS. Bizarre. It had me in the video, and I watched it like every single night before I went to bed, and it was just The Rock, The Rock, The Rock, The Rock. And The Rock was my favorite, still is my favorite. Like, what a guy. But from then, I was just like, I'm hooked. Like, there's no way I'm getting out of this. That obviously didn't turn out to be completely true, because I walked away from wrestling in 2007. Missed quite a big port. I think I went away from wrestling for about 4 or 5 years until I came back. I think when I came back, it was just when the Shield were starting to build some momentum. So I think they were aligned to CM Punk at the time. That was around the time I came back to wrestling. And I was like, fucking hell, I really like the Shield. Like, these guys. Can I swear, by the way?
You can. It's fine. Awesome. Carry on.
I was like, fucking hell, like, I really love this Shield concept. Like, this is great. And then everything kind of went around it. And I haven't stopped watching it since. So I've been watching it now for maybe 7 years now, nonstop. So, and I ain't going to be stopping anytime soon. Wrestling just seems to be getting bigger and bigger. So
it really does. There's so much content and so much to keep you invested. So what sort of wrestling promotions, favorite wrestlers do you like to invest your time in nowadays, and Dits?
I mean, WWE is the main one.
Yeah. And
it's purely because it is what I've watched from day one, and I am loyal to WWE. I'm not like every other promotion can F off and all that kind of stuff. I'm not that kind of guy. Like, I'm very aware there's a lot of other promotions in the world, and there's a lot of other promotions in the world that are absolutely killing it. But I am loyal to WWE just purely for the fact that I've watched it since I was a kid. That's pure and simple. No matter how much they mess up, and we will get into that in this episode.
We will.
I will still like have their back, and like in recent months on my podcast as well, like I've tried to be really positive about WWE, and that's because of that loyalty. But I have started to branch out with AEW now starting, so I'm looking forward to getting into Dynamite a little bit more. I enjoyed the first show. I didn't think it matched the hype that because I looked at it on Twitter. I saw all the spoilers straight away. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, like what a debut! This is absolutely fantastic, amazing." I was like, it was good, but it wasn't like blow away good.
It was a good first episode, wasn't it? I think for a new show, a new company, the first time on live kind of weekly television, I think it was a good outing. And bearing in mind that they're not an established company, they've not been around for years like NXT or WWE. I think that it was a good outing, and they just need to kind of, erase out anything that might not have ticked the box and just do more of the good things. But there are a few things that I enjoyed on last week's Dynamite. But last week was a hell of a week to be a wrestling fan. It's one of the biggest weeks in history. It was mental, from the season premiere of Raw with the new look stage, and Brock Lesnar throwing Rey Mysterio and Dominic all over the place, through to NXT with that amazing championship match to kick things off, and Finn Balor returning, Ciampa returning. AEW on the Wednesday as well with their debut episode of Dynamite. Friday we had SmackDown. That was a hell of a show. That 10-second defeat of Kofi, with Brock being the new WWE champion, and Cain Velasquez coming out to confront him, and that was a hell of a beatdown. So it's been a good week or so for wrestling fans, all culminating on Sunday with Hell in a Cell. So not kind of focusing too much on Hell in a Cell at the moment, but last week in general, kind of what caught your eye, or what were some of the highlights, and did they match or kind of exceed your expectation in any way?
NXT was my show of the week, hands down. No, there is no ifs or buts about it. I mean, I've been a huge NXT is my go-to brand. Always has been, and it probably always will be. If it keeps up the quality that it has, there's no change in that.
It's just NXT, so consistent, isn't it?
It is. That's the thing. That's the key word, consistency. And I don't remember a time when I think when the main roster pulled so many stars up. I think it was 2-3 years ago, Balor, Shinsuke, all those kind of guys. I think it went into a slight lull. Yeah. But a lull in NXT is still good. So that's why I love it. So NXT last week was brilliant, and it's the first one I actually watched the whole 2 hours of, because we only got an hour on the network, because the rest was on USA for the first 2 episodes, I think it was, wasn't it? Correct. I was like, this is ridiculous. All the good stuff's in the first hour, of course it is, but this is frustrating. But this is the first one I actually watched the whole 2 hours, and I was glued. Finn Balor coming back to NXT, Finn Balor's I'd say he's in my top 3 at the moment. So him coming back, I was like, whoa, Jesus Christ. And then Ciampa coming back as well, I was like, and then you kind of compare that to Hager coming out at AEW, and I'm like, okay. Yeah. But like I said earlier, AEW, the Dynamite show, it was good. It just didn't meet my it didn't meet the expectations I had from other people. It met my expectations from my own personal side of things, but from seeing what everybody was raving about on Twitter, I was kind of like, nah. But I have a feeling it's because of how it aired here in the UK, where it was on the ITV hub. Yeah. And it had no backstage stuff, no promos. There was no video packages. It was just here's a match, cut away. Here's a match, cut away. Here's a match, cut away. And I was like, is this the actual show? Is this what it is? But it turns out that they just cut so much of it out. I found out halfway through. I was like, this is weird. And then he said, no, that's the way it's aired on ITV hub for some reason. And I think it's because they rushed it out, because it was never going to be on ITV hub. It was going to be Sunday mornings. That's right. So I'm going to let them off and see what they do this week. And if it's the same again, it's going to be frustrating, because I didn't watch the replay on the Friday night, so I don't know if they fixed any of it. But we'll see. We'll see this week how that goes. I'll watch that on Thursday. I look forward to watching it. I am excited to watch a bit of AEW. But Raw last week was the one that fell a little bit short for me. I love the stage. I love all that. And it was a good show, but it wasn't as good as it has been in like recent months. And then SmackDown came along. The stage for a start was I popped for the stage. The little things they've got going on, I was like, that's unique, that's different, I love it. And I actually, people hated on SmackDown, but I actually really enjoyed it. Like, yeah. I know I think I could see past the whole point in it, because it's the debut on Fox. You want to draw big numbers, so of course they're going to bring people in like Tyson Fury and Velasquez. I don't really care about that. I really don't. Back in the Attitude Era, Mike Tyson came out. Did anyone complain then? No, they didn't. Arnold Schwarzenegger came out in like '99. Did anyone care then? He punched Triple H, for Christ's sake. Did anyone care? No, they didn't. Like, so why is that any different now? So.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they keep up the momentum and kind of build on the storylines that kicked off SmackDown on Fox from Friday. But let's have a little look at Hell in a Cell then, Dits. So that, surprisingly, there was only 4 matches announced, and I know you alluded to this on your Twitter page, and I did as well on my Facebook page, but only 4 matches announced up until the day of the pay-per-view, with, of course, the main event, The Fiend versus Seth Rollins, the 2 Women's Championship matches, and a tag match featuring Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan versus Rowan and Harper. But then on the day of the show, a whole slew of matches were announced. I think another 4 or 5, maybe 6 matches were announced on the day of. So it was quite a strange lead up to a pay-per-view. I mean, they've obviously invested a lot of time and effort into the weekly shows, the Raws, the SmackDowns, the NXTs, and it was almost as if for a second that Hell in a Cell was a bit of an afterthought, and they were putting all their promotion into the top 1 or 2 matches. But you must have thought that was quite strange as well, that kind of the promotion of the pay-per-view and how it did almost come across as a bit of an afterthought. Did you have similar feelings?
I did, and I can see why, because their attention was season premiere of Raw, like Fox was the big one, so I can see why their attention was on that. And it was kind of like, well, if that was always going to be the case, you've known that SmackDown is going to be moving to Fox for months now, like have Hell in a Cell like the week after rather than have it follow that, because like I said, going into the day we only have 4 matches, but I actually kind of warmed to that idea of 4 matches, because I was like, NXT do like 4 or 5 every takeover, and it's great. Like, it's not overkill, like every match gets enough time to tell a story and all that kind of stuff. And I actually, a little bit of me thought, hang on a minute, like this could actually be really, really good for this show. Like, it hasn't had a great build, accepted, but I could understand why. So I wasn't annoyed, I wasn't pissed off about it. I was like, this means that we can give both Cell matches plenty of time, and then the Bayley Charlotte match can get a decent amount of time, better than what they got at whatever the last Clash. That was the one. And the tornado tag, I actually didn't know that was a tornado tag until I watched the show, which was nice. But that match, I was like, give that match enough time. I've enjoyed the story post murder angle, so I was like, I'm really looking forward to it. Like, every match is going to get enough time, and I will have nothing to complain about. And then all of a sudden on WWE Now, is that what it's called? All these matches just went, and I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. And I was like, we've got the Viking Raiders and mystery partner against the OC. I was like, why are we doing that? And then, who else is it? The women's tag that came in. I was like, what?
That's it. Baron Corbin, but so there was a whole slew of matches that got added, and but so the first match to kick things off was the Raw Women's Championship match, Hell in a Cell match, Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch. So this was quite a good match. I mean, the fight actually began outside the cage, and I think Sasha Banks started ramming Becky's face or head into the cage as it was lowering. So the cage wasn't even fully lowered before these two started scrabbling outside. Becky even kicks the cage door into the face of Sasha before the match officially got underway. Becky then grabs a chain, the chain that the ref was using to chain the door closed, and she used it to punch the boss with. Becky then grabs a table and a ladder from underneath the ring. So it's getting pretty wild from the off, to be honest with you. The boss and Becky then exchange chair shots on one another. Becky gets driven into a steel ladder from a Meteora from outside the ring. So that was a pretty impressive spot. Banks then then gets a close near fall from a second Meteora, this time whilst Becky was sat on a chair in the centre of the ring. Then there's some kendo sticks that come into play, and some weird contraption where Becky props a chair into the cage using the kendo sticks, and then puts Sasha Banks onto the chair, and then comes flying off the side of the ring, off the ring apron with a drop kick, nailing the boss off the chair down onto the floor. So that was a pretty inventive spot. I really enjoyed that one. But Banks nearly had the match won after delivering a third Meteora, this time driving Becky through the table. So that was pretty fun. The boss then gets loads of chairs out from underneath the ring and throws them into the ring. I think there must have been about 10 to 12 chairs there. However, Sasha's plan backfires as Becky was able to get Sasha on the top turnbuckle and hit with a Bexploder. And I think that they missed the majority of the chairs, but then Becky applies her disarmor, and Sasha taps out, and Becky retains her Raw Women's Championship in a really fun, exciting, like I say, quite an inventive match, to be honest with you. They certainly utilised all the toys, but their match at Clash of Champions, I thought, was the match of the night at the time, and this one equalled it, if not bettered it. I thought that they utilised the cage, they utilised all of the weapons, and some quite inventive spots, and Becky came out on top. To be honest with you, I thought that Sasha was going to have this one going into it. I wanted Becky to win, don't get me wrong. I honestly thought the boss, it was her time, but it wasn't, and Becky retained. So Dits, this was a fun opener. Like I say, it's all downhill from here. But what were your thoughts on this opener then, buddy?
Honestly, I would actually say it's in my top 5 WWE matches this year, and that includes NXT. Like I don't know what it was about it. I mean, like you said, like it kind of incorporated everything that you would expect a Hell in a Cell match to have. It was very like you could tell like there was a little personal thing going on there, and it wasn't in recent years, because now that they've got the gimmick pay-per-views, I think it's more or less been a case of here's a single match, but it's in a cell. That's it. There's nothing more to it. You might throw a chair in, you might throw a table spot in there, but that's really it. It's just that, and it's like, okay, you're not really utilizing the cell gimmick here, and you're just throwing it away, and you're kind of diminishing the whole concept of Hell in a Cell. But this was refreshing as hell. Not even just because it was a great match and they utilized the concept, but just the fact that it came from the women as well. Obviously, it's the second only women's Hell in a Cell match that we've had.
Correct.
And I think it far exceeded Charlotte and Sasha. Yeah. I don't know. I remember watching it. I was just like, this is amazing. Like this, I mean, obviously hindsight, it should have main evented the show, but I don't know. Obviously, with what happened, we'll get into it. Yeah. You can see why that ended it. But usually you would see that match main event in the show because it was incredible. And that spot in the corner where she props Sasha up on the kendos and the chair, and she hit all of that drop kick, by the way. I watched that. I was like, ugh.
They weren't holding anything back, were they? They were full force on all their moves. It looks pretty rough. I mean, usually, well, sometimes, and you've seen some matches, and I remember back to, I think it was a kendo stick match between Alexa Bliss and Bayley from about 2016, and they were kind of tapping each other, and you're not putting any force behind any of their kendo stick shots. But here, they were really knocking lumps out of one another, and it really added to the match.
Yeah, and I think that was the key thing. You've got, like, with matches like this, exactly like you said there with Bayley and Alexa, and actually saying that, when you look back at Bayley's heel turn when she was attacking Becky,
those chair shots,
so weak, and then you look at what Sasha was literally going for. In fact, she actually hit her like square in the back of the head a week or two before that. But Sasha's like, she goes for it, whereas Bayley's are just kind of I don't really hurt. She is my mate in real life, so I don't really want to hurt her. Sasha's like, I don't give two flying fucks. Bang, and that's what it needed to be. You needed to sell that personal feud between them, and I think they absolutely did it. And they utilized They utilized the cell itself. They utilized all the equipment under the ring, like even the chain and padlock. A great story was told throughout it, and like you, I thought Sasha was going to win. I do a prediction league, and I did have Sasha to win that. And I'm not disappointed that Becky won, because I would have been genuinely happy with either Becky or Sasha winning. It's no odds to me, but I did have Sasha winning because it's kind of like you've had to come back. Her first feud in, the first match at Clash kind of just ended as a DQ, and it's like, okay. And then we're going to Hell in a Cell, where it's not like Becky's losing, a straight up singles match. She's getting absolutely brutalized throughout this match, getting chairs thrown into a grid, being slammed through tables, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like if she lost, it would be like, well, I'm an inferior wrestler. It had nothing to do with that. So I did think Sasha was going to win, but I'm not bitter, because at the end of the day, we had one of my favorite matches of the year. Certainly one of my favorite women's matches I've ever seen. I really enjoyed it. I've watched it twice now as well, and went back and watched it because I was watching it on my phone when it was live, and I've gone back and watched it when I came up here, and I was just like, yeah, it's just as good on second viewing as it is the first. And obviously I noticed stuff that I didn't notice before the first time round. Great match. Absolutely great match. Great way to open the show.
And I wouldn't mind seeing more matches from these two as well, to be honest with you. I think that there's plenty more in the can from these two. And we'll talk about another Women's Championship match a bit later on, where I'm hoping that that's their last match. But between Sasha and Becky, I'd like to see more. And it wouldn't surprise me if they feature in some sort of match together at Survivor Series. But fingers crossed for that one anyway. But moving on to the second match of the night. And what I thought was possibly the second best match of the night, certainly in my opinion, Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns teaming together in a kind of a bit of an unlikely combination of partners going up against former tag team champions Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. So this match was billed, as you rightly mentioned earlier, as a tornado tag. And I wasn't fully aware that it was a tornado tag until the match itself. I'm sure they may have mentioned it on previous episodes of SmackDown, but I just didn't catch it. And it also was fought under no DQ rules. So we knew this was going to be a good one. Anyway, so this is also great to see Luke Harper, after he returned at Clash of Champions last month, featured here on a pay-per-view, and after spending months in the wilderness. But there's quite a scary spot fairly early on involving Luke Harper, where he appeared to smash his head against the forehead, forehead against the edge of the announce table as he dived through the ropes. So he seemed to be kind of rubbing his head and kind of suffering for a few minutes after that move. Rowan and Harper then drop Bryan face first onto the edge of the LED board at ringside. Rowan then runs part of the barricade into the face of Roman Reigns. Daniel Bryan is able to turn an attempted assisted powerbomb on the announcer's desk into a Hurricane Rana, and then Roman Reigns speared Rowan through the other announce table at ringside. That was pretty fun. Luke Harper delivers a sit-out powerbomb from the middle rope on Daniel Bryan, and that was another impressive spot. But Reigns and Daniel Bryan are able to combine quite well at the end of the match here, with Reigns hitting a Superman punch, Daniel Bryan connecting with a running knee, and Reigns finishing the match with a spear for the 1-2-3. So I thought that was a really fun and quite well booked match, with Rowan and Harper dominating the power game, but it was Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan who showed their skills to overcome and to pull out the win, as both men eventually hug it out in the ring to the approval of the fans. So quite a fun ending and a fun match. What are your thoughts on this one, Dits?
Loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. Honestly, the tornado tag is the thing that actually won it over for me.
Definitely.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen a tornado tag in years in WWE. Especially on pay-per-view, I haven't seen it in years. The only time I've seen a tornado tag is if I'm playing 2K. That's the only time I see it, because that's what I prefer.
Yeah, I can't recall having seen one I can't recall having seen one.
No. So, it was perfect for what this... I mean, if there was tags going on, obviously, you'd still get a good match. You still get a good match. But having that tornado element, having the no DQ side of it as well, you could not have set that match up any better. And like you said, it was hard hitting throughout it. I love Harper and Rowan together. I think they work best together. Although Rowan has started showing signs of a lot of improvement as a singles guy, and Harper's always been a good singles guy, regardless. But I think together as a unit, that's where they thrive, and I think that's probably where they're going to be now until Harper's contract runs out and he goes, and then whatever happens to Rowan then. But there's so many good things, and that Harper spot with the table, I was like, oh god. This is the thing with wrestling. You're watching it and you're like, are they just selling that, or did that actually legitimately hurt them? Which is good. That means he's doing his job, I guess.
Absolutely.
So that was a bit of a concern, because he went straight for the head, he was holding it down the floor. I was like, ugh. But he got. I think
after that spot, the commentators were saying that he was kind of shaking his head, or he had some sort of problem with his arms, as if he had some sort of nerve damage after that move as well. But he did recover quite well to finish off the match.
Yeah, so that was good. It's a relief to see that he's okay.
Yeah.
And obviously, it all built to this crescendo of a finish. I mean, Rowan went through the table with a spear. I always loved that spot, the spear through the table, like where he runs across all the announce desks. I love that. Then I think Harper looked. I mean, I know Harper took the pin, but he looked strong because he ate a Superman punch, a running knee, and a spear.
Yeah.
That's how they took him down. So he still looked strong coming out of it. But of course, I think it was always going to be Reigns and Bryan that won it. Purely just of how things have been booked in the last couple of weeks. Where it goes from now, I don't know, but it was a really, really good match. And a little bit of me thought when Daniel Bryan kind of went like that to the handshake with Reigns, I thought, good. We're still Bryan's got this out of his system, kind of got away from there, but we keep in heel Bryan. So I was a little bit like, come on. But then they hugged it out, and I was like, you know what? The heel run has been great up until this point. I've really enjoyed it. If he goes face again, I'm not going to care, because Daniel Bryan's face is great. As a heel, he's been fantastic as well. So I'm going to lap any of that up. But I don't know if you caught it. I don't know if I haven't seen anything on social media since it happened. So I think he might be okay. But everyone was saying that, I mean, it was caught on camera very briefly, but then it kind of shot away. As he was making his way up the ramp, he collapsed, holding the back of his head. I saw that. I was like, oh, God, do not need that. Do not need that. But I haven't seen anything since. So I'm going to assume that he's all right. And it was just a sell because of just how, physical the match was.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping.
It's funny
anyway.
you say that, because I've actually caught that clip as well, but I didn't think too much of it immediately after. I mean, at the time I thought, oh, crikey, okay, I hope he's selling. But haven't thought too much about it since then. I haven't heard anything more about it since then either. I'm assuming that he's kind of selling, but then I don't know. With his history of neck and head injuries, you just hope that he's okay. But it's good to see. Like I say, I echo your sentiments regarding Daniel Bryan. I loved him as a heel. Thought he was quite possibly the best heel in the company, certainly leading up to WrestleMania. But I've always been a big fan of Daniel Bryan as the babyface. Loved the WrestleMania 30 storyline and kind of culmination there with him raising both belts in New Orleans. And I don't think we're quite going to get that version of Daniel Bryan back, but it was definitely loud yes chants in the arena on Sunday, and it'll be interesting to see where that leads. But it's all good as far as I'm concerned. I just hope that Daniel Bryan's okay. He does take a lot of punishment, and I think he asked, he doesn't want the wrestlers to play soft with him. He wants it to be kind of full action, full force. So he does bring a lot of it on himself. But fingers crossed that there's no ill effects there. Moving on to the next match. And it was Randy Orton versus Ali. So this was quite a gutsy performance from Ali, although the crowd did appear quite quiet, quite dead through most of this match. Ali is able to connect with a springboard tornado DDT, but misses on his attempted 450 splash. Orton doesn't miss, however, with a draping DDT, but it takes him 2 attempts to hit the RKO. He finally drops Ali. Eventually gets the pinfall with a spirited fight from Ali, the former Mustafa Ali, of course. Now, these two have had some pretty good matches on SmackDown before. I don't think this was one of their best, but it was good for what it was. I'd love the company to get behind Ali a bit more, to be honest with you, and do maybe a plucky babyface underdog storyline with him. But I know that he was utilised very well at the beginning of this year, and leading to what was going to be that Elimination Chamber spot that Kofi managed to capture and capture the hearts of WWE and the WWE universe, and get that WrestleMania shot eventually through that elongated storyline on SmackDown. But that would have been Ali's spot if it weren't for the injury, which I think was possibly caused by Randy Orton. But I want to see them do a little bit more with Ali. But what were your thoughts on this match and Ali as an individual, as a wrestler? What would you like to see them do with him a bit more in the future?
So I didn't even know this match was happening because I missed the kickoff, and they came out and I was like, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Like, is Randy coming out for a promo? I was really confused. And then obviously it turns out it was all on the kickoff, that it was all built up. Now, Randy Orton has his critics, and he has a lot of critics saying, his matches are really slow, they're boring, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know whether it's just because I'm a big fan of Randy Orton. I don't know. But I can kind of see like past that. He's got a very methodical style. Like it's purposely slow. It's not it's not that he's a terrible wrestler. It's not that, you know, he's kind of phoning in. I guess he does kind of phone it in sometimes, but it's kind of his thing. Like that's how he tells a story. That's the whole point in, you know, Randy 2019, and I'm all for it. So people who criticize this match and, you know, his ones with Kofi recently as well, like I can kind of see past that. So I enjoyed the match for what it was. Like you said, it wasn't the best that they've had together, but it was, as a last minute thing, addition to the card, it was decent. And we had one of my favorite RKO counters that I've seen so far, where he did the little handstand on the way down. Loved that. And the thing with Orton against guys like Ali is that you see like inventive ways of guys taking the RKO. I know we've seen where he dives through the ropes, does the roll, and then into the RKO. We've seen that already before, but it doesn't lessen the impact of this because it was still great. But Ali as a wrestler, like I really do feel for him because, you know, obviously, I mean, the what if, you know, the butterfly effect, all that kind of stuff. Like, where would Ali be now if he was in Kofi's spot? Or the other way around. Like, I don't know. Like, Kofi's was an established star, so maybe that's why he got as far as he did. Like, would Ali have faced Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania? You don't know these things. Like, it is very much a what if. But obviously, it did derail his push, which, you know, it was a shame. But, you know, he's a young guy. He's mega talented. So there's still enough. Like there's more than enough time for him to get going, especially with the draft coming up now. Hopefully that will refresh some things. But I think he's getting a bit of a rough ride recently because, you know, he had what seemingly was a program with Nakamura, which then just ended. And it's like, all right, okay, we could have had him in the IC title picture. That would have been pretty cool. And it ended. And then he just faced Nakamura on like a one-off match on SmackDown. And then he took the pin and that was it. I was like, okay.
It's almost as if they just don't quite know what to do with him, and hopefully they'll figure it out soon. But I think they know they've got a talent on their hands because they do keep featuring him on weekly TV. They do keep featuring his kind of camcorder promos, and they do occasionally put him into a pay-per-view match. And put him in a pay-per-view match against Randy Orton, it could be considered a push, I suppose. But you just want them to kind of see exactly what they have in him and go one step further and give him a shot at a championship. Nakamura's championship. Like you say, it'd be interesting to see where he ends up after the draft and to see kind of, you know, where the land lies and what the competition is and what championships there are to vie for. But I think they do know what they have in Ali, but they just don't know what to do with him yet, so it'll be interesting to see. But there we go. Moving on to our next match, and it's a championship match. It's for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship, and you've got current champions Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross going up against the Kabuki Warriors, Kairi Sane and Asuka. So one of the most talked about things that happened in this match, believe it or not, was the eye poke from Kairi Sane to Nikki Cross when she was on the ring apron before delivering her plank walk sliding clothesline to Alexa. However, the referee was too busy listening to the complaining Nikki Cross to count the pinfall, and the match continued. Kairi almost had the match won for her team with an attempted insane elbow, which was blocked by a pair of boots from Nikki Cross. Cross is prevented from being able to make the tag with Sane grabbing a hold of Alexa's feet on the ring apron. Alexa strikes back with a cannonball off the side of the ring to the floor. That was a pretty impressive spot from Alexa Bliss there. Then straight out the playbook from the Great Muta, or maybe even Tajiri. Asuka spews green mist directly into the face of Nikki Cross, allowing Asuka to get the pinfall victory. So that match had a few memorable moments, including the eye poke and the cannonball off the apron, but nobody was expecting the green mist spot there from Asuka, allowing her to win the match for her team. And we have brand new WWE Tag Team Champions in the form of the Kabuki Warriors. And it looks like Asuka and Kairi Sane could possibly have turned heel in that match. Certainly, I think on Monday Night Raw this week, there was a promo in Japanese, and when translated into English, there were some choice words from Kairi Sane and Asuka. But I'm happy to see the Kabuki Warriors being featured in a match like this, winning the championship. And like I say, a heel turn is no bad thing in my books. But what about yourself?
I'm not gonna lie. When I was watching this, I wasn't giving it my full attention. Like, it was, I was kind of off. I was like, oh, here we go. Like it's just a thrown together tag match for the titles. Bliss and Cross are going to retain. It's like watching Raw. That's how I felt. So I didn't give it my undivided attention. But like you said, the cannonball was to the outside. I was kind of like, oh, that was good. The eye poke. I caught the eye poke. I was like, that's fantastic. Love that. And I remember watching. I was like, they are turning heel. Like you can see it happening. Everyone's like, well, no, they're not. And I said, are you not watching this? Like they are turning heel. Like when have you ever seen Kairi Sane do an eye poke before? Especially in that like cocky heel like way that she did. It was hilarious. I loved it. And the mist. The mist is the thing I can take away from it. If anyone says, oh, what do you remember? It's the mist. Like I completely out of nowhere. I was like, oh my God, I actually popped for that. I was like, that is awesome. And then of course we saw it again on Monday. So it looks like it's here to stay, and it looks like they are going to be heels from now on. But I'm still not sold on the women's tag titles yet. I think as much as I love the Iconics, as much as I love them, I don't think their first reign was. I was saying that even Sasha and Bayley's inaugural reign. It just didn't really click for me. Like it kind of soured everything. I mean, we didn't see that. We did see them, but they weren't on the TV shows. Like they were relying on WWE.com exclusives, which, by the way, are some of the best things that WWE produce. Love WWE.com stuff, content, and that's primarily where they were, and it was a shame. And then obviously they lost the titles to Bliss and Cross, which. It was what it was, but I've really enjoyed Bliss and Cross together. I thought they were a really good team. They've meshed really well together. I don't know what the original storyline between them was going to end up being because it was like Bliss was using Cross initially, but I think they kind of go, oh, we actually got a pretty decent thing going here. We'll just keep them together. I think that's how it ended up, and they won the titles, and it looked good. And then we came to this, and this is where I thought there's no way there's a title change happening right now because the Kabuki Warriors are just. They just exist, which is a shame because you've got Asuka and you've got Kairi Sane and they're just existing, which is it's not right. It isn't right because they're both mega talented, especially Asuka. I mean, they're both great, but for me, being the big fan of NXT, seeing Asuka in her current role is, a major disappointment. But this element of a heel turn kind of freshens it up a little bit, and it kind of puts them in the spotlight. They've got rid of Paige, which was just so random and pointless. I'm glad they got rid of that. And the fact that on Monday, like you said, they did the promo in Japanese, just let them do that. Yeah, it's a heel thing to do. Just let them do that. It
absolutely works.
I have no idea what they said, but I was like, that was awesome. Like I'm with you guys. I'm with you. Like I have no idea what you said. But I loved it. I loved the finish. I love now that the heels. And if this was a title change between faces, I would have just been like, all right, whatever. But because the Kabuki Warriors were the heels in this match and obviously built towards that mist, I was like, happy. We'll see where this goes now. But with the draft coming up as well, I don't know what the situation with the women's tag titles is going to be because it was the whole it's going to be defended on any show, NXT, Raw, SmackDown. That's
right. I remember that. Yeah, that never happened.
Never happened. No. So I don't know what's going to happen now. So hopefully that's still the case. They'll just do the loop between all the shows, and it's possible now because NXT is on TV. It's on a network, so you can pull. But I've seen stuff where they're saying, well, they don't really want titles going from like Fox to USA. Just ridiculous stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's the same company, just whatever. I don't know how it's going to go, but yeah, as a match, it was like watching a Raw TV match essentially, but it just had a really cool finish.
It did. And that's the kind of highlight that I'll take away from this match is that green mist, just like you said, something you don't see very often. And like I say, it was a favourite of Tajiri back in the day, and the Great Muta before him, back in kind of the WCW days. I remember him doing that quite often in WCW. But yes, refreshing to see it back, and a bit of a talking point to take away from that match. But the next match didn't have many talking points, to be honest with you. The OC versus the Viking Raiders, and they brought out their mystery tag partner. And one of the big talking points coming out of Friday SmackDown on Fox was Braun Strowman with his face-to-face with Tyson Fury. And here he was tagging with the Viking Raiders against the OC. So this match ended when all three members of the OC attacked Strowman in front of the referee. Got a pretty quick disqualification call from the referee there. It almost seemed a little bit too quick, to be honest with you. AJ continued to beat down on Braun after the match. That was until Braun dropped AJ with a bigger right hand after a phenomenal forearm attempted by AJ Styles, with the commentators stating that was a direct message to Tyson Fury. So, like I say, another one of their matches that could have been very easily a toilet break, to be honest with you, Dits. And what were your thoughts on this one, and kind of how it all ended with Braun Strowman overcoming the dastardly heels and that big right hand to deck AJ Styles down to the canvas with?
I mean, I know, like, I could literally talk for hours about wrestling, as you've probably gathered already. Like, I think I just talked for like 20 minutes about the Kabuki Warriors, for Christ's sake. But this, I don't have that much to say about this match. It was a nothing match to me. I kind of was just, I'd glance and go, okay, right, that's happening now, or whatever. It didn't hold my attention. I wasn't interested in it, and I think the mystery partner thing played into it. Having Braun come out rather than I expected Ricochet because of the connection that he has with the Viking Raiders, or at least Cedric. So either it was one of those two, I would have been a bit more invested, because it was, as soon as Braun came out, I was like, they've literally got him on this pay-per-view just to sell this whole Tyson Fury thing. That's literally all it is. And of course the finish, well, I say the finish, what happened after the bell was rung at the end, it kind of proved that point that, you know, he delivered that punch to AJ, aimed at Tyson Fury, whatever. If you're going to throw this match together just purely for that one punch spot to be aimed at Tyson Fury, then I have no interest in it whatsoever. Like, you've got the OC, great little team going on there. You got the Viking Raiders, love the Viking Raiders.
Yeah, great to see them on a pay-per-view. I like to see them get a bit more airtime, definitely.
But the mystery partner thing let me down. The match itself was, again, it was like watching a Raw match, and I don't really have anything more to say about it. It's just it is a shrug of the shoulders kind of match.
And that's exactly why it was my shortest match review of this whole pay-per-view. So we'll move on to the next one. And this one did capture my interest a little bit. And we've seen this match a few times before on Raw and in the final of the King of the Ring, of course. And it was King Corbin versus Chad Gable, or Shorty Gable, whatever the commentators choose to name him by nowadays. But Corbin gets a close near fall after catching Gable in midair with a spine buster. That was a pretty impressive move. Gable gets a 2 count from his Chaos Theory rolling German suplex. I always love it when he does that move. Corbin gets another close near fall from a deep 6. Gable comes back with a moonsault and an ankle lock, but Chad Gable eventually gets the pinfall victory after Corbin comes into the ring with his scepter, however, when the referee prevents the King from being able to use it as a weapon, Gable rolls Corbin up with a schoolboy for the 1-2-3. So this was an okay match, actually, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'm pleased that Chad, or Shorty Gable, whatever you want to call him, is getting a notable win here on pay-per-view. However, the crowd did appear quite dead for most of the match until towards the end. But did you enjoy this match a little bit more than the OC match, Dits? What were your thoughts on this one, buddy?
Absolutely, I enjoyed it more. The fact that I actually watched it helps. But I think I watched it just purely because the actual King of the Ring final match is one of my favorite TV matches all year. Like, it was so good. And it's not something you would expect to say with a match with Corbin in it, because Corbin has his haters. Like, if you listen to my show, like, you'll know that I like Corbin. I can see that he plays his heel role absolutely perfectly. He's got a moveset which is his moveset is incredible. Like, so it's a fun moveset. And then you got Chad Gable, who I hate the shorty stuff. So somebody actually said it on Twitter, I think I saw it yesterday, that he's the same size as Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero was 5'8". No, why he didn't get the shorty gimmick? So why is Chad Gable? Like, it just annoys me. But Chad Gable as a wrestler is amazing. He's the guy that the storyline was ridiculous, but he's the guy that should have been Kurt's illegitimate son. Like, I don't know why
that would have made a lot more sense.
It would have made a lot more sense. But hey, that's what we got. But yeah, so just based purely on the fact that final was great, and then their follow-up match I think it was the week after they had the follow-up match where it ended in DQ. It was good up until that DQ finish. So I was like, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna see how it goes. And it was a fun little match. It was what it was. Again, it was TV quality. But like you said, Chad Gable getting a win on pay-per-view, it's good. Like it just kind of sustains his little push that he's got going on. You know, despite the fact he didn't win King of the Ring, he still looked amazing in defeat. The following week, he looked great. Looked like he was going to beat Corbin. Corbin cowered out and smacked him with his scepter. DQ, protected. And then he picks up the win here. It looks like they're going to carry on feuding because of what happened backstage. But I'll see where it goes. Because you'll never know. Obviously, with WWE, like come this draft on Friday, they'll probably go like that, and then we'll never see any natural resolution to what happened backstage. Because if Baron Corbin attacked me, I'd be pretty pissed, and I want to do something back to him. But if they'll probably go their separate ways, and then we'll never think of it again. But if it does happen again, and it is around the quality that the King of Ring of Final was on, you got no complaints from me whatsoever. It was a decent match. But again, just TV quality. It was just there to fill time.
Yeah, but once again, I think that the big thumbs up for the fact that Chad Gable was being used on TV, used here on a pay-per-view, getting a win as well. So looks like the people behind the scenes, similar to Ali, they know what they have and they're trying to utilise him. And maybe the shorty gimmick isn't too bad after all. Maybe it's something that's going to get him a little bit more noticed. But you can kind of tell the influence of maybe a Paul Heyman behind the scenes, getting behind certain wrestlers that maybe weren't pushed before, like the Bobby Roodes and the Chad Gables and maybe the Cedric Alexanders that you've heard that Paul Heyman is fairly high on, and that's no bad thing as far as I'm concerned. So long may it continue. But moving on to our semi-final match of sorts, another women's championship match. This time for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Dits, current champion Bayley going up against Charlotte. So before this match could even get started, the two wrestlers were rudely interrupted by Tamina Snuka. I didn't even realise she still worked for the company, to be honest with you, but apparently she was the 24/7 champion. I don't know when that happened. I must have fallen asleep when that happened. And they're being chased through the arena by R-Truth and Carmella. And Carmella floored Tamina with a super kick, and Truth covered to regain his 24/7 7-11 European Championship for the umpteenth time. So that was a bit of comedy there to get the evening going. Back to the match, Charlotte and Bayley. As my co-host on episode 70, Kieran Reid, mentioned in our predictions episode, this feels like a match that we've seen a million times before, and it certainly felt it watching it on Sunday night, to be honest with you. Charlotte gets a bloody lip. I think it was from a sloppy neck breaker from Bayley off the ropes. Bayley nearly gets the pinfall by putting her feet up on the ropes for extra leverage, but this was spotted by the referee. But Charlotte was able to apply her figure 4, turning it into the now infamous figure 8, getting the tap-out victory to become 10 times WWE Women's Champion. So Bayley throws a bit of a tantrum at ringside and gets a bit teary. You can see that she's visibly upset. And as I mentioned earlier, I hope these two get some fresh opponents in the lead up to whatever the next pay-per-view is. I think it's the Survivor Series. I, for one, have seen enough of these two in the ring together. The match was simply okay, nothing more than that, to be honest with you. But we get a new champion, a 10-time champion in Charlotte. So what were your thoughts on this one before we talk about the infamous main event then, Dits?
Well, I'm actually glad that you brought up the 24/7 title bit, because I think we should get a hashtag going here, justice for Funaki. Like, how is he not a 24/7 title winner? Like, how? Yeah. As soon as I saw him get dragged out, I was like, Kung Fu Naki is going to be 24/7 champion. This is fantastic.
That would have been awesome. That would have been the highlight of the night.
Yeah, but then we didn't get it. R-Truth's like 66,000 second win or whatever it was. But yeah, it's like, Tamina. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm not really a fan of Tamina. I didn't even realize she was back from injury, but hey, there you go. But Charlotte and Bayley, like you said, we've seen it so many times. That they've done better in the past. Like, this is something I was trying to watch it, and just like at this point I'd moved onto my Mac, so I was watching it, like properly watching it, and I thought if it was going to be any match where I actually go up and get ready for the main event, this was going to be the one. I expected a lot more from it. We didn't get it. Like you said, it was okay. It didn't blow me away. Charlotte winning doesn't blow me away. I don't know.
But don't you find it surprising though, Dits, that you've got two very, very capable wrestlers in Bayley and Charlotte, and any other time they could have 5-star matches all day long, but the two of them together, and it's the same at Clash of Champions, and that was a bit of a crap match with a screwy finish. This one, just didn't really seem to get any heat behind it, and it just seemed to kind of end out the blue, and the crowd weren't into it, and there was nothing special really to report on it. So quite strange. You've got two very, very capable wrestlers, and Bayley as the kind of newly formed heel, and Charlotte as on a face turn number 22, and it's just not happening. It's just not clicking between the two of them, which I find quite strange.
Yeah, and this kind of like goes all the way back to when we thought it was like 4 matches. Like, I think if this had more time, it probably would have been better, but then obviously they threw everything else in there, then they probably lost time on the match that they may have originally planned. I don't know. I like Charlotte, but it just gets to that point where it's just, right, okay, here's a 10th reign. Here we go. Like, she's nearly at Rick's 16-time record. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I think
they need to move on to fresh opponents next time. And Ember Moon, what's happened to her since when was it? Extreme Rules we last saw her. She deserves a little bit of a rub and maybe a shot or two at Charlotte's Championship. But that would be fresh. That would be exciting. I think the fans would get behind that. Yeah,
and you've got Liv Morgan as well. She's waiting in the wings. You've got Bliss and Nikki Cross in a tag team. Split them. They're ready to go. I think Mickie James is injured, but that would be an interesting run for her last little hurrah in wrestling, for her to get an opportunity in a title picture. Dana Brooke has come on leaps and bounds since she first came up to the main roster. Ruby Riot's going to be coming back soon.
Lots of NXT talent.
NXT talent. Yeah,
there we go.
Jesus Christ, the abundance of NXT talent that they've got down in Full Sail at the moment is incredible. So maybe Baszler is going to be next.
That's the one I'm waiting for. Yeah, that's the one I'm waiting for.
Because Baszler is a lot older than I actually thought she was. I thought she was mid-30s, but it turns out she's 42 or something like that. So
she's in her late 30s, but
So she's at that point now where, I mean, she doesn't wrestle like a dangerous style where she's putting that much strain on her body, which is good, but she doesn't have that many more years left to go. So she needs to drop the end. I love Shayna Baszler. I'm loving her run. It has gone a bit too far, to be honest, but get her onto the main roster straight away. You've got something fresh for Charlotte. You got something fresh for Becky if they're still the champions when she comes up, and then hopefully she brings her Stooges with her as well, because then that adds another element to it as well. So that would be the one for me. Get Baszler up there, or get Rhea Ripley up there. It doesn't really matter anymore because NXT is not developmental. So.
Yeah, we've not seen a lot from Toni Storm since she lost her championship in Cardiff, so that could be somebody that might crop up in the draft. But I think the draft kicks off this Friday on SmackDown, doesn't it? And then continues next Monday. So it'll be interesting to see what changes happen there, and all the ups and downs and crosses between NXT, Raw and SmackDown, and who knows what's going to happen. But let's talk about the match that everybody's talking about. Unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons, although it was good to a point, but we'll get into it. But Universal Champion Seth Rollins versus The Fiend's Bray Wyatt, and this was our second Hell in a Cell match of the evening. Of course, the first one kicked off the show with Becky retaining her championship over Sasha Banks, and I've got to say straight off the bat regarding Bray Wyatt, the reimagined Bray Wyatt, and of course his alter ego, his Jekyll and Hyde character, The Fiend, I think it's probably been the best character promotion, the best character development in a character for, you could say, years. And since Bray Wyatt first turned up on the very first Firefly Funhouse back in, I think it was May of this year, so we're talking a good 6 or 7 months, every episode of Firefly Funhouse has captured your imagination, been fun, been different, been weird and wonderful and menacing all at the same time. Then the introduction of The Fiend. We obviously saw The Fiend's debut at SummerSlam and defeating Finn Balor in a quick and brutal match. This is his second match. But I say, as far as his promotion, character development, and booking of the Fiend, it's been absolutely spot on and second to none up until this match. So. I mean, before we talk about the match, kind of, did you have kind of fairly high hopes and high expectations of this match? And did you have similar thoughts to myself that this was obviously going to be a continuation of how good they've continued to book the Fiend, and that, you know, it was almost an inevitable end with the Fiends winning the match and possibly gaining the championship? But kind of, what were your thoughts and your expectations going into it?
I mean, Bray and the Fiend stuff has been I'd say it's probably been my favorite stuff, like, since, you know, it was a thing. The Funhouse came about, and I was like, what the hell is this? But then that quickly went away. I watched the first episode of the Funhouse. It was great. And then obviously just built and built and built. And then we got to see him live in the ring, taking out legends and stuff like that. And then he was entered into this title picture, which I don't think he needs it. I don't think he needed it. And it shows. It really does show, because they've kind of booked themselves into a corner, which is we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I think it was too soon for something like this, because he's at that point where he doesn't need it. Just, you could have thrown him into a match with anybody, to be honest, anybody else that isn't a champion. Like, it would have worked. You wouldn't have put them in the cell. You don't need the cell. But because obviously this is the booking that we ended up having, I couldn't see any other outcome other than Bray winning, where it was going to be the right outcome. Like, I saw WWE put up a poll about it, and DQ was one of the options. I was just like,
yeah, in a Hell in a Cell.
That's bizarre. Why is that there? But I didn't think anything of it at the time. But obviously, you know, things kind of went a little south.
Well, one of the big talking points coming out of SummerSlam was Bray Wyatt's or the Fiend's entrance, and his updated entrance music, and the fact that he carries a lantern, which I think at SummerSlam portrayed Bray's head. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think that the lantern he carried out this time around, did it portray Seth's head? Did you get the same image there, or was it still Bray's head? It looked a bit like Seth's head. It was difficult to make out because they've both got long hair and facial hair. So, but nevertheless, I mean, the lantern is certainly a striking feature. But one thing that really stuck out with me in this match, and kind of reminded me of, I don't know, that WrestleMania match he had with Randy Orton, I think it was WrestleMania 33, was the cage and the ring and the arena bathed in red light, and that kind of set the tone. But I don't know whether I don't know, what did you think about the surroundings and the red light especially? I mean, did it kind of bring you into the match or take you out of the match? I mean, did it impact your enjoyment of the match at all? I mean, what are your thoughts on the entrance and the ring and the light?
I mean, the entrance itself is great. It's one of the best entrances that I've seen in wrestling, like, hands down, really is. It's unique, like the way they've changed up his old theme music to kind of match the Fiend. Amazing. The lantern is great. Like you, I was like, is that Seth? But I think it was Bray, but I was like, is that Seth? It'd be cool if it was Seth, but I think it was Bray.
Yeah.
And then when the lighting kind of went red, I thought, oops, like, Kevin Dunn's fucked up in the production truck again. I was, what's going on here? And then it just stayed. It's as if it might have been like they messed it up and just went, oh, you know what, screw it, we'll just leave it. They won't notice. I actually think it added a little bit to it. I actually quite liked it. I think for people who were watching it live, like in the arena, it was probably quite difficult to see what was going on. Like, you've got red lighting, a red cage. I don't know, like, how, from photographs that I saw from people live, it looked terrible. But from my experience just watching it on TV, I loved it. Like, it kind of added like a little bit, like it added to the hell side of it. So I didn't mind the lighting. It did look like somebody was developing photographs in there, but apart from that, like, I liked it. It was different. It was unique.
It was different. Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like that since Sin Cara.
I was going to say, it did kind of add flashbacks to Sin Cara. Now, that was a wrestler in a run of matches that I really don't want to repeat, but it did kind of give me flashbacks to Sin Cara and that horrible kind of, it was like a blue aquatic sort of feel. But in this match, the Fiends looked almost impervious to pain as Seth kind of used all sorts of manner of weapons around the ring to batter the Fiend with, including using the cage as a weapon itself. Seth uses steel ring steps against the Fiend. The Fiend does manage to hit his sister Abigail, sending Seth headfirst into the cage. Seth manages to hit a frog splash on the Fiend, sending him through a table. Rollins then hits a curb stomp, but the Fiend just stands up from both of them moves. There's a second Sister Abigail with the Fiend getting a 2 count. The Fiend then snaps Seth's head, very similar in a similar manner to the way he did with Finn Balor, kind of the neck snap to Balor at SummerSlam. Same here with Seth. The Fiend then uses the Firefly Funhouse mallet as a weapon, so I think he's killed Rambling Rabbit a few times using that, and he tried to do the same with Seth unsuccessfully here. Seth hits 2 flying knees, 2 super kicks, another 3 curb stomps, a pedigree, and a 4th curb stomp, but the Fiend just kicked out at 1. So the Fiend obviously taking a page out of the Undertaker's book and being a bit of a phenom, bit of an impervious to pain, and kicking out nice and early, just sitting up like a phenom. The Fiend even kicks out on one after being hit across the head with a steel chair, and that kind of took me back to the Royal Rumble '99, I think it was, with Rock and Mankind or Mick Foley, something we've not seen. I thought that was banned in Mr. McMahon's books. The Fiend's Rollins even smashes the steel chair into the face of the Fiend using a stepladder, so it gets even more vicious. Rollins searches the ring for anything that he can put an end to the Fiend with, including ladders, chairs, a toolbox. The referee eventually calls an end to the match after Seth uses a sledgehammer to the head of the Fiend, or certainly to the toolbox, and the ladder and the chairs that are on top of the Fiend looked pretty vicious. All sorts of officials and medical staff comes rushing down to the ring, and as the cage gets lifted, but the Fiend comes to on Rollins. The Fiend then exposes the concrete floor on the outside, dropping Seth Rollins with a Sister Abigail on the exposed concrete. There's blood pouring from Seth's mouth from another mandible claw as the show goes off air. So, well, the match that I imagine, but how could anything possibly match, what happened or what occurred during this match? And it was unlike anything I'd seen before, to be honest with you. It wasn't well received by the fans at home or in the arena. There were plenty of chants for AEW, and there were audible bullshit chants and boos for Seth Rollins after his actions in the ring. He definitely came off a lot more heelish, and to be honest with you, I started to feel sorry for the Fiend with the amount of punishment, unnecessary punishment that he went through there. But so this is kind of, the match that we've been building up to throughout this review, Dits, and I think you've got quite a few opinions on this one. So give us your 10 pence.
So, the problem I have with this is that I have so many opinions that I actually, we're 2 days removed from Hell in a Cell now, and I've still not formed, my thoughts are still kind of all over the shop, but the whole thing, the actual match itself was good. So people shitting on the match itself, you shouldn't, because the actual match itself was great. I loved it, and like you said,
and I agree with that. Second.
Yeah.
I thought the match itself was good. It told a good story, but it was just kind of the antics towards the end and the outcome that I disagree with.
And the kicking out at 1 was great. Loved that. The crowd popped for it as well. Seth's his reaction sold it perfectly. I was like, that's cool. That he's literally just popped straight back. It wasn't like an Undertaker sit up. He literally popped up and sat and stood there and was just loved it. But this is the problem. There's got to be a line somewhere with the Fiend. This feeds into the finish as well. He's taken all that abuse and kicked out at 1. Then he's eaten another 106 curb stomps, and he's kicked out at 2. But an easy kick out at 2. It wasn't even so close. It wasn't. It was just kicked out at 2. And then of course you had the chair shot to the head, the ladder in the chair, the toolbox, then the sledgehammer, and then obviously the match got called off. The stretcher comes out. And then within about a minute of that cage going up and the ref calling it, Bray's up, and he's going to hell on Seth, and it's kind of so he's eating all of that. The ref's called it off, and now all of a sudden he's popped up, he's ready to go, as if nothing happened. It's cool to see, and it's really good to see that they've kind of like built the Fiend up to be this like huge presence, this really tough, nails, hard to beat kind of guy. But I think they've made him too tough because I don't know how anybody's going to beat him, like outside of murdering him. Like I honestly don't know. Like if
got a bit too comical in the end, didn't it? Really, in terms of the amount of punishment that he did take, and
it took away from it. That's the thing. Like he kicked out.
Why did not withstand? Yeah.
And it was cool. That was a really cool thing. And that's where it should have ended. Like go into all the other stuff, but just don't have him kick out at one again. Like I don't know. It's mind-boggling. It really, I'm still trying to process it. The fact that it was a Hell in a Cell match and it got called off because Seth was going to use a sledgehammer, like boo-hoo. And the fact that the Fiend got straight back up again, everyone was like, restart the match. And you kind of go, well, why don't you restart the match? The Fiend is clearly fine. He's up on his feet. He's dancing around. He's attacking Seth. Get it? Just restart the match, like whatever. But obviously we didn't get that. We had AEW chants. We had, all the boos. My God, the boos. In fact, we had the boos when he was curb stomping him during the match. Never mind, like what goes on afterwards. Like it was. They booked themselves into a corner. WWE.
Yeah, you said it right earlier, where that they have booked themselves into a corner. So I mean, from here, where do they go with Rollins? Where do they go with the Fiends? I believe, from what I understand, Seth Rollins boos at Raw last night, and there was very little mention of the Universal Championship match from Sunday last night on Raw as well. They kind of, I think there was right towards the end, the last half an hour, 20 minutes of the show, they kind of mentioned it and recapped pictures or whatever they do regarding the Hell in a Cell match. But they obviously kind of thought that they knew that it was not very well received, and trying to kind of hide the fact that they had that match at all. But where do they go next with Seth Rollins? Where do they go next with the Fiends? What are your thoughts? I mean, there was a series between these two that's now been pulled. I think the graphic either Sunday night or Monday morning. But what's your thought? Where do we go next with these two individuals?
I mean, I love the fact that neither of them appeared on Raw, and I don't know whether that was by design or because of kind of what happened. I don't know, but I like the fact that they didn't appear, because it kind of sells, I mean, for Seth's side of things anyway, it kind of sells what happened after the match. The Fiend, I would rather the Fiend just show up every now and then rather than every single week, which is what we were getting. I think he's a special attraction, treat him as such. But where they go for purely because of how that match ended, it's not over. Like you can't attack Seth and not expect retaliation. You can't expect nothing more to come of it. So I think they're going to carry on feuding, but where does it go? Like you've just had, Bray portrayed as this unbeatable force where, he can literally, you could probably get a knife and stab him in the head and he would kick out at one. Like that's the point that we're at. So it kind of becomes, I say it becomes predictable. Like who predicted a no contest last, like who predicted that, I guess. So I think that's where, I think Bray's going to get drafted to Raw. Rollins will stay on Raw just because he's Universal Champion. They'll feud for a little bit longer. What happens from there, I don't know. Whether Bray wins the belt, he doesn't need it. Like we said, he doesn't need it. So, but how do you have Bray lose the feud without A, like harming him as a character, and B, pissing everybody off again? Like it's, again, booked themselves into a corner, and that's the problem. But Seth is...
Here's an interesting scenario for you, Dits. How about, because of the reactions that Seth Rollins got from the fans and online since Hell in a Cell, I think they've got an opportunity here to turn Seth Rollins heel and the Fiend's full-blown babyface. I mean, he's getting a babyface reaction everywhere he goes anyway. That could add a nice little twist to the feud and a little bit of freshness as well, with them kind of swapping roles almost. And that could Rollins' career as well, because I think he's better, far more effective. He's certainly better on the mic as a heel. I think he's very boring, very bland as a babyface. Something where they can take a negative, turn it into a positive, and capitalise on the situation that happened from Sunday night.
Yeah, and I mean, I miss heel Rollins. Like, I really do. I thought like his best work is as a heel. Like his in-ring stuff has been great as a babyface, but like you said, like it just hasn't caught on for me or for a lot of people. Like it's there to see. Like the fans vocally just aren't clicking with him, even with the Brock feud that he just had. Like just people just weren't getting it. I'd love the thing with the Fiend. I'd love the Fiend to stay heel, but have the Funhouse stuff kind of be face. Because then you kind of he has this like other side to him that's dark. I mean, that's how it's all portrayed anyway. But the Funhouse Bray is still heel. So have him like as a face, have the Fiend as a heel, but turn Rollins heel. Like they didn't capitalize on the babyface turn when he came back from injury.
When they should have, yeah.
And now is an opportunity to capitalize on all this negativity surrounding him. Pull the trigger. Like the draft is coming up. It's a perfect time to do it. Get him away from, or even actually use this Fiend feud as a catalyst to turn him heel. Like, so whatever their next match ends up being, and there will be another match, have the outcome of that. Just push him over the edge. He goes a bit loopy, turns heel, starts attacking people he wouldn't usually attack, that kind of stuff. I think that I think that's the natural course. To be honest, he doesn't need to turn heel. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't need to turn heel. I just think it'd be the right call, just based around fan reaction at the moment, because it's not good. Like I can sympathize with him, but it's not good. So something needs to be done.
There we go. Well, Dits, we've covered all of Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. It was an interesting show. Let's put it that way. I think interesting is a good way to sum it up. There were some highlights. I think after the first couple of matches. But good to see them kind of giving Ali a chance on pay-per-view, Chad Gable on a chance on pay-per-view. So it's good to see they're getting behind some newer, fresher talents within the WWE and kind of giving them a bit of exposure. But after last week's tremendous Raw, SmackDown, AEW, NXT, a little bit of an anticlimax, unfortunately, but nonetheless, it came away with quite a few talking points. Good, bad, or indifferent, it certainly gave us that. But listen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and helping us out with this.
Oh, you broke up then.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the pay-per-view review, the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view review, and it's been an absolute honour and a pleasure. Despite the fact that it's had mixed reviews from both of us too, I just want to thank you for helping us out with the podcast this week, buddy.
Oh no, thank you very much for having me on. Like I said, it's been something that I've been keen to do since I started listening to you. I think it was 2 months ago I started listening to the show. So and I am keen to return the favour, of course, with the draft series, and then get you on for some NXT highlights as well. It seems natural. It just seems natural.
It's got to happen. It's got to happen. But before we say goodbye to you, where can my listeners find out about you, get in touch with you on Twitter, Instagram, throw out your social media plugs, and kind of where they can find you out there on the internet, buddy?
So on Twitter and Instagram, I am as original as hell. I am at Dits on Wrestling. You can find all my stuff on there, all my promoted tweets for the show. My podcast itself is on any podcast directory you would expect to go on, all the big ones, and then random ones I don't even know about. My YouTube channel is in the midst of a little bit of a rebirth kind of thing. It's now labeled Dits on YouTube, so it's a combination of my Dits on Wrestling stuff and my Dits on Gaming stuff. So I've combined that into Dits on YouTube, and I'm considering a Facebook page as well, but I just haven't pulled the trigger on that one yet. So that might be a thing, but you can find me wherever you need to find me. But Twitter is where I do most of my operating, so if you're gonna interact with me, Twitter's the place to be.
There we go. Well, Dits' Twitter handle will certainly be on over the next day or so. But thank you, Dits, and I can't wait to get you back on the podcast again for a future review of some kind or another. But in the meantime, please keep it tuned to the Wrestling with Johners podcast for all of your weekly NXT and NXT UK updates, WWE and AEW pay-per-view reviews, and so much more. And if you've enjoyed listening to the Wrestling with Johners podcast, please don't forget to spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your family, and podcast so that you don't miss out on a single episode. That's all from me. That's all from Dits. Have yourself a great week, and in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and speak to you all again soon.